On unit 4, and now that we have looked at all the possible approaches of arriving at an optimal capital structure for a firm, we are going to use the analysis to understand if there is actually a benefit to reach the optimal capital structure. So what is the value that comes up by reaching the optimal capital structure? That's what we are going to try and analyze at this point of time. That's what we're going to try and work on at this point of time, right? So what we're going to do is try and understand whether the equity value actually changes, and if yes, how do we know by how much would the equity value change by, right? So does it change, and does it change by a big amount, or what is the magnitude of the change that comes in, right? So now let us assume that we will follow our first approach of capital structure optimization, which is the cost of capital approach. We will repeat our analysis using the market value of equity. Remember earlier we had used the book value of equity. Now we're going to use the market value of equity, and let's try and identify what is the optimal capital structure that the firm is looking at. What is the optimal debt to equity that the firm is looking at? And then to reach the optimal debt to equity, what does the firm have to do, right? So that's what we're going to look at as we kind of understand. So let's look at this structure and analysis. So it's exactly the same as what we had done earlier, just that we have identified the current debt equity number based on not the book value, but the market value of equity. So the market value of equity at this point of time for Apollo Tyres is 109,000 million, and essentially that when divided by when you divide the debt by equity, you get this number at 0.13. The current enterprise value is market cap plus debt minus cash, which is 117029. The number of shares outstanding is about 509 million shares that the company has, right? Based on that, we identify that the new proposed debt equity structure should be 0.43, right? So that's the proposed debt equity structure. That should be 0.43 when we look at the total value of the data that the firm has. And so obviously to reach 0.43, we will need to figure out what is the current debt and capital. So total capital that we see is A plus B, and this 0.43 is debt to equity ratio, which means the debt to capital ratio is 0.3. So how much should be the debt out of this? That should be 0.3 into this number. So that's the debt number that we are looking at effectively. That should come out, right? So we're looking at 37,000 million of debt that should come in. If you have this debt, then obviously the equity value will change accordingly, and we'll have some more changes that come across, right? What are those changes going to be? Let's try and assess those changes. So we effectively find out that the new debt that we will optimal debt to equity ratio is 0.43, and hence the new debt should be 37,256 million. The firm needs to borrow an additional 22,679. How do we get this? We take 37,256, which is the suggested debt, and subtract the current debt which is there, which is 14,577, to arrive at the extra money that you have to borrow. And what do you do with this? Either you return it as a dividend to shareholders, or you do a buyback of equity. You can't, there's no point leaving the cash in the firm, right? So either you do a buyback, or you return the share as the money as dividends to the shareholders, correct? So that's what we do, and that's what gives us the overall number. Now, what is the difference? What is the enterprise value earlier, and what is the saving that we are doing because of this? So what is the cost of capital? Cost of financing at current debt values is 12.51%. That's the current cost of capital. And then if we identify the new optimal cost of capital, which is the minimized cost of capital approach, that's 12.38. So what is the saving?